Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Now the subtitle for this video is "Can you fall in love with a camera?" Well, you can fall in love with your favourite food, you can fall in love with your favourite car, so there's no reason why you can't fall in love with a camera. And I have absolutely fallen totally in love with this camera. It's the Voigtlander Brilliant, built about 1930, and it was given to me by my brother Michael. So I'd like to say thank you, Michael, for letting me have the privilege to go out with this camera. Now you'll say, well, why would I fall in love with such an old camera that's only got 3 apertures, 2 shutter speeds, the fastest is 1/50th of a second, and the viewing lens is not connected to the taking lens, so you have to scale focus. Why would I like a camera like this so much? And I think the reason is its simplicity. It's placed, and I mean this with all respect to Voigtlander and people that own Voigtlander cameras, I place this in between the Holger and say a standard sort of like a Mamiya 6x6 TLR camera. This one is in between because you do get this very slight blurring at the edges from this Voigtlander lens. But what it does, it produces this area in the highlights that have a beautiful glow to them, and it's a trademark of some of the old pictures that we see from years gone by. And to go out with a camera like this, it's quite liberating, because all you've got to think about is distance and composition. The exposure is easy to do. In the pictures that I took in this video, which I'm going to show you, I didn't use a light meter. I just guesstimated the exposure and left it to the films, black and white films built in latitude, to help me get negatives that were workable. The lens isn't nothing special. It's just a Voigtlander. I think it's about 75mm lens, f7.7. I mean, Voigtlander produced different quality lenses. From this you would probably gone to the Scopa, and then from that to the much more expensive Helia lens. But the images that this produces has blown me away, and the look of the pictures as well has made me actually fall in love with this camera. Now I'm not going to do a full review on the camera. I'm going to do a separate video on that, and that'll be coming up in the following weeks, and I'll show you all the working parts of this camera, how to load it, etc. So to show you some of the pictures, and the real first outing I had with the camera, I did go out with it prior to getting it, just get used to it, and you'll see those pictures in the review video. But there wasn't much to really get used to. I just walked out with it, guesstimated the exposure from experience. You can use a light meter just to start you off, but once you get that first light reading, you can basically guess the exposures. So I had a walk around Whitby with the camera, and I really enjoyed it. The viewfinder in this is so clear, it's unbelievable. And the hardest thing is just guesstimating the distances for the scale focus around the lens. But I soon got used to that, and as I say, the pictures that this camera produced for me blew me away. And I'll show you in the video, as I say, I'll show you the pictures that I took. I'll just talk you through them, and I'll also zoom into the pictures, and you'll see how sharp this old lens is. I can honestly say that all I've done is scan these pictures in and put them on the computer, and I've done nothing different to the pictures than you would in a dark room, in increasing the contrast slightly. I haven't used any sharpening. That's the only thing I've used for editing is contrast. So let's get on with the actual video itself and see some of the pictures, and you'll see why I absolutely love this old camera. The only thing I've done with this camera was to replace the light seals. There are light seals, surprisingly, in the camera, and the first time I used it, and you'll see that in the review, I did have light leaks. I've replaced, around if you can see there, around these areas on the actual door, there's a light seal where the hinge is, replaced that one there. You can see that, and then there's a light seal on the top here. I replaced that. I'm just showing you these. If you have one of these cameras, this is where you put the new I put it's a high quality foam, but it does seal the light. And then yeah, as I say, one on the edge there, and then I did one yeah, on the smaller door at the bottom. As I say, I'm not going to give you a review. That's going to be a separate video. So let's get on and see the pictures I took when I went walkabouts in Whitby. So this is the first picture I took in Whitby. I just like the archway and the statue at the top, and the camera was set to 1/50th of a second at f11. And as you can see, the central sharpness is absolutely superb on this, and the detail that it captures. And also you can see the softness on the edges. On this image particularly, maybe because I was pointing the camera up slightly. So from there, I walked onto the harbour side at Whitby, and I noticed this guy in his motorcycling gear with his hoodie thing on his phone. And then there's this wire statue of a woman to the right of him, and the two helmets stacked up. And as I was walking to it, I just thought it looks like that statue of the woman is waiting there quite patiently while he's on his phone, waiting for them to put the helmets on and get off on the motorbike. So anyway, I took the picture, but because I was using scale focus, I didn't have to turn my whole body towards them and take the picture and point the camera at them that way. I was facing side onto them, and I just turned the camera towards them. And as I say, because it's scale focus, all I had to do was compose and press the shutter, so you get a more natural looking photograph. I didn't attract his attention at all. Now you can see from this picture how sharp the lens is. For a lens of its age, it's absolutely incredible. And then even at f11, the background is slightly out of focus, and it just separates the subjects from the background because of the out of focus rendition that the lens has given. So I was quite pleased with that. So I moved on a little bit further down the harbour side, and I saw these two boats moored at the side of the harbour wall, tied up with rope. And I think what caught my eye was the rope that was holding the boats, and also the light that was hitting the first boat and the second boat in deeper shade. So I knew I wouldn't get all the ropes in the foreground in focus, so I leaned over with the Voigtlander, and I set the focus between the infinity and the 20-foot mark, and composed and just pressed the shutter and got this. And this picture shows what I was talking about, how the lens renders the brighter areas. It takes on a softness. The only way I can explain it is like a glow to it, and it's unique to the uncoated older lenses, and I really love this look. Anyway, I'll zoom into the picture and let you see the sharpness that this lens is producing. The exposure for this was the same as the others. It was 1/50th of a second at f11. So I walked on a little bit further, and there was some more of these wire statues, and I think they're harping back to the older times in Whitby, where the old fishermen used to work on the harbour side, and I think it's a great learning thing for people to see, really. Walked up to the subject, set the scale focus to about 6 foot, and positioned the building between the two wire statues. I forget what they call that building. It's just in front of Whitby Abbey, and took the shot. The exposure was the same again, 1/50th of a second at f11. And I think because I was so close that the right hand wire statue is in critical focus, and the left hand one is in what they call acceptable focus. And because again I was close, the background's gone out of focus, and it's made the statues seem 3D against the background. I'll just zoom into the right hand image and just see if that is in focus. Yes, it is, and the other one is just slightly going out of focus. But again, I'm very pleased with it. The only thing I will say is I have to get used to this parallax error on these cameras. I've only just got the feet in, and I'm sure I'd got them in when I composed it, so that's something I've to take into account when I start using the camera again. So I carried on walking down towards the pier, and then I saw these two modern motorbikes against this old wooden building, this structure, and against this nice blue sky. So got the camera out. I set the scale focus to around 20 feet. The exposure was again the same, 50th of a second f11, and took the picture. And you can see in this picture again how the whites, the highlights have rendered in this picture. It's not in your face, it's a softer look. I describe it as it has more of a glow to it. You might not see it that way, but that's how I see it, and I think it just renders it beautifully. We'll just zoom in again on this one and see how sharp it is. Yes, it's very sharp, is this. So again, it's another picture that I'm really pleased with. You know, some of these pictures are really out of my comfort zone, so I was struggling with that a little bit as well. I normally like to be about where there's no people walking about, but I just took no notice, and you know, I quite enjoyed the experience. So I carried on walking along the pier, heading for the old wooden pier, and had to be careful on this stretch because over the last 4 years I've lost two of my flat caps. They've blown off and gone into the sea, and one of them was brand new. So this time I really kept hold of my hat and managed to stop that one from going in the sea. But as we came up to the edge of the old wooden pier, I noticed these railings with Whitby written on it, and then the boat in it, and I just thought it made a nice sort of abstract picture. So I scale focus the lens to I think between 3 foot and 6 foot, and just composed the picture and took the shot. The exposure again was 1/50th of a second f11. I keep repeating myself, but I think I only changed the exposure once. And let's have a look in the centre part of the image. Zoom in there, and we can see we've got some nice sharpness going on there. So another image that I was very pleased with. So we carried on then onto the wooden pier. So we eventually made it onto the wooden pier. Made sure my flat cap was securely on. I didn't want to lose that one. And as we're walking along, I noticed David, who had done the workshop with during the day, turned side on to me, taking a picture with his Rolleiflex. So I got down low with the Voigtlander. I set the scale focus just to infinity, and then took the exposure. And yes, you've guessed it, it was 1/50th at f11. And I really love the way this has turned out. We've got the railings pulling you in towards David, and we've got this out of focus boarding that seems to suck you towards the main subject. And I'm really pleased the way this has turned out. I also love the way the Voigtlander has rendered the tones as well. I'll just zoom into this and just show you. I hope I'm not boring you with this, but just zoom into the central part, and you'll be able to see that you can see the actual knobs and etc. on his Rolleiflex. And keep in mind, this is just a small JPEG, and on the full size image, it's even clearer. And it's you know, it's quite astounding at what these old lenses can capture. So we walked to the end of the pier. When the tide's out, you can go down these steep metal steps onto the concrete base of the pier, and we were greeted with this scene, and it was the strong side lighting coming from the right hand side, casting the shadows from the posts on the right hand side. And this is one picture I didn't think would turn out, because it was you know, because of the shading of the roof of the upper pier. It was not dark, but it was a lot darker than what the light had already been in. So for this, I'm quite certain I opened the aperture to 7.7 and then just framed up and took the picture. And I was surprised that it actually turned out. And this is a picture where you can see on the right hand side the strong light that's coming in, how it seems to emit light, and this is how these old uncoated lenses tend to render the highlights, and I really like the look of that. The exposure, slightly different this time. It was 1/50th of a second, f7.7. So we ended up going from there back into Whitby to the beginning of the piers, where the piers start, and we were just stood about and we saw this old gentleman. Unfortunately, he was looking through the waste bins, and I think he looked to us as though he was looking for something to eat. So David, who was quite forward at talking to people, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with it, but he said to me, I think he's hungry, let's go and ask him if he wants something to eat. So David walked up to him and said, you know, are you hungry? And he just stood back a little bit. He said, well no, I'm fine, thank you, I'm fine. He spoke very well, and we said, look, if you're hungry, we'll buy you some fish and chips, although David bought them. And he said, oh, okay, that'd be lovely, thank you. So we went to the fish shop at the end of the pier, and as we stood waiting for the fish and chips, David asked him if we could take his picture, and he was quite happy to do that. And this is one of the pictures I took. David got a couple of pictures, and this one sort of paused, he's looking straight at the camera. But the next picture that I took, this one, is where he was just waiting for the chips, and he was staring into thin air, and it was an unpaused picture, and I like this one actually better. It turns out he was telling us that, you know, through various things in his life, he was living rough on the streets. He was camping just outside Whitby, and we were quite pleased, you know, to just help him out. And you know, we got these pictures. So as I say, out of my comfort zone, but I did enjoy doing it, and capturing the character of this person. For this picture, I set the Voigtlander to between 3 foot and 6 foot, the scale focus. And for this one, I left the aperture open at 7.7 because we were slightly in shade, and the exposure was the same as the previous one, 1/50th of a second at f7.7. Right, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the pictures I took as much as I enjoyed taking them. Now, you might have noticed that I took 10 photographs, and on a roll of 120 there's actually 12 images, and I didn't waste 2 frames taking pictures. How I did waste the 2 frames was loading this camera, and this is where it can be a little bit difficult. At the bottom of the camera is a red window, and that's where you line up the number 1. Now I'll show you in the review of this camera the rest of the sequence, but you've got to line up to number 1 in that red window. Now the problem is, in daylight I found it very difficult to see the number 1, and you'll see here when I open the camera, that's where the red window is looking down. It's like a little tube, and because it's going further down, it's about 3/4 of an inch, obviously you're losing a little bit of light, and it can be difficult seeing the numbers. And what I did, I wound on to number 3, so I lost 2 shots. Now what I'm going to do, it might be a little tip for you when you're using one of these cameras, is I'm going to take a little eyepiece, I think it's a watchmaker's or hobbyist magnifying glass, and then when I'm winding the film, I'm just going to place it to my eye, and hopefully when I wind the film on, I probably will be able to see a lot clearer using this. I know it seems silly, but it will make life a lot easier. So I just thought I'd mention that. That's why I didn't get the 12 shots. I only got 10, and it's because I made a mistake on the winding. You know, in this technological era that we live in, with modern digital cameras, and even the last of the film cameras, even they were getting like that, where you've got all these modes, aperture priority, shutter priority, program, the list goes on. Then you go into menus, and then you know, when you've autofocus points, and all these gizmos on these modern cameras, and all really for just taking a picture. I know they can come in handy, but they can also, you know, in some ways inhibit your photographic process, because it's remembering all these settings, and you know, when you're getting older, it don't get any easier. And I found that by using cameras like this, like the Voigtlander or even the pinhole camera, they are much more fun to use because you're concentrating a lot more on the picture rather than on the functions that the camera can set. So, you know, even as I say, this camera, it's no focusing, it's scale focus. You've limited apertures, limited shutter speeds. It's still quite liberating when you do get successful pictures out of these cameras, and they are capable of producing very good pictures. So, you know, if you do get the chance to buy one of these, don't shy away from it. They are easy to use, and by buying cameras and trying film, you know, you're helping keeping film alive. These companies that make film, make the emulsions and etc., and all the things that go with it, rely on people buying their products so they can keep manufacturing. And you know, it would be a real shame, it would be a crime really, if, you know, film had to stop manufacture because the lack of demand for it. Although I don't think it's going to happen in the short term, maybe in the longer term, I don't know. But all I can say is, if you haven't tried film, try it, because you know, these cameras, some of these cameras can go back 100, 120 years and even a little bit further, and they can still take really good pictures. All it needs is a little bit of knowledge. And as I say, that is the fun of film photography, because you've got the opportunity and the chance of getting these cameras and actually using them. And as I say, if the pictures turn out, you do really get a real kick from using them. So try film if you haven't tried it. If you use film, use it a little bit more. Let's keep film alive. So that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like. Better still, subscribe to my channel. And as I always say, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video.